Hello and welcome to Todd Talk, where insight meets inspiration. I'm your host, Todd Hiller, and I'm an author, speaker, and longtime community leader, here to guide you on a journey towards fulfillment and balance. In every episode, we'll explore ways to fill life's emptiness, helping you uncover practical tools to create harmony, purpose, and happiness. Whether it's thriving in your career, nurturing personal growth, or simply finding joy in the everyday, Todd Talk is your space for real conversations and actionable advice. So let's thrive together, personally, professionally, and beyond. This is Todd Talk, and I'm thrilled to have you here.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to Todd Talk. I'd like to talk to you today about something that is on my mind quite often these days, and the topic is something I think is relatable and that everybody might think about more often than they realize. So it's about growth, and it's getting warmer outside. Things are finally starting to warm up around here where I live. Not as much as I'd like, but they're getting there. And one thing I noticed today was one of my little starter pots that I have in my kitchen, on my kitchen table by the window to go in the garden eventually once it gets a little warmer, is that one of my seedlings has finally broken through the soil and finally sprouted. And it makes me so happy every year, every time this happens, because it symbolizes new life, it symbolizes growth, the changing of seasons, and it just brings me to a place where I am reminded to remember and appreciate the beauty that comes with new things growing. And as I was looking at this little tiny tomato plant that started, it just popped open from a seed, it just sprouted, I had this thought about growth and about personal growth and how we can relate this to our own lives. So I looked at the seedling, and it had literally just pushed through the soil. It had just come up and emerged out of the top of the soil in the pot. And I thought, here is this determined little seed pushing its way through the soil, welcoming itself into the world. No rush, no fuss, just determination, just steady, slow determination to become something, to get up and out of the ground and make something of itself. And it reminded me to think about that growth in terms of us as people, and that growth doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. And I want to say that again, growth does not have to be loud or showy to be powerful. So whatever you're working on, it's okay to go slow. It's okay to be deliberate with your steps. It's okay to be careful and plan them out. Now, we've talked before about just starting being the hardest part and about how the beginning is the toughest and the first step is the hardest to take. So take that and take that first step and get things started. But remember, as you go along and as you walk through your growth or your journey or whatever it is you're hoping to be, that growth is okay if it's slow and steady, because no matter how slow or fast it is still growth. Just like that little seedling that I watched pop out this morning, eventually that will become a tomato plant, and it will bear fruit, and it will be big and abundant and beautiful and healthy and happy. But it doesn't need to be rushed. It doesn't need to be pushed along. And in the case of a plant, we can't push it along. Yes, you could give it some fertilizer, but really our job as caregivers of plants and caregivers of ourselves is to give it and ourselves the right amount of sunlight, the right amount of water, and the right environment to grow. And one of the things I think that's really important for growth when it comes to us as people is to make sure you are putting yourself in the correct environment. It's no secret that we change jobs, we change careers, we change houses. Sometimes we move around the country, sometimes we move around the state. Sometimes we just move within our own little world of where we are from day to day and place to place. But whatever you do, make sure that the environment you are in is one where you are able to grow. If there's something that you feel is holding you back or keeping you stagnant or keeping you from growing, make sure you move. Make sure you put yourself in a position to grow and to have the ability to become something different and become something new and turn yourself into something that you really want to become. There's an old story, actually it's a clip from Boy Meets World, and if you are my generation, I love that show. I grew up on that show, and Mr. Feeney, in all the words of wisdom he gives, he's talking to Corey at one point about how he transplanted a flower from a small pot in his living room to his garden outside, and Corey says to him, did you do it because you knew it would do better out here? And he said, no, I did it because I wanted it to have the chance to grow. We will all get to a place in our lives eventually where we get too big for the current pot we are planted in, so to speak. We will get too big for the current situation. We will get too big for our current life status or stance, and that's okay. You don't have to be afraid of that. But in order to grow and to keep moving forward and keep moving on, make sure you don't rush yourself. Being careful and planning your next steps is perfectly okay as long as you take them. Don't spend the entire time planning. I've talked about that too. Hamlet, if you're a Shakespeare fan, he couldn't act. He couldn't get himself to actually do a lot of things. He used to talk about them and write these big, lengthy speeches. He had all these monologues about doing all these great things, but most of them he never actually did. And I think we as people can get caught up in that ourselves a lot. We get stuck in that planning phase where we say we're going to do something and we want every single thing to be perfect and we plan it right to death and then it never actually happens. So be really cognizant of the fact that you can plan things out. You can plan your next steps, but once you have them planned, you just need to take them. Don't overplan them and let yourself grow and watch how beautiful it is. Don't just say, I'm never going to look back. I am a big fan of not looking back because that's not the direction you're going. I like that adage and that idea a lot, right? We don't look backwards because we want to go back to where we came from, but do take the time to look back to see how far you've come and see how far you've grown. I was having a conversation with a very good friend of mine not long ago about growth and about, hey, I don't really feel that different than I was 2-3 years ago. But then looking back, when you truly look at yourself, say, wow, I guess a lot really did happen. I really have grown. I have changed. I have embraced that change and become someone different in some ways. And this doesn't mean you have to change the core person of who you are or change your core values. If you like who you are, that's fantastic. But there are always little spaces or big spaces where you can grow. Maybe you want to change careers on the grand scale. You want to say, hey, I want to do something completely new and different with my life. Or maybe within your own career, you just want to change the way you show up for your job and your fellow employees. Both of them are okay. Both of them are ways you can grow and improve and be better. And both of them are going to take some time, but that's okay that it takes time. And the other thing is, I like this a lot too, and I've talked about this a long time ago in a video when it comes to growing things and personal growth and relating it back to things we grow in the ground. Farmers who plant corn are a great example. They put the corn seeds in the ground and they make sure they have sunlight and the things they need to grow, and they hope for rain and all that kind of stuff. And then they let them grow and they let them become something beautiful that will bear fruit and produce corn. And then when it's ready, okay, focus on that part. When it's ready, then they will harvest the corn and use it to feed their family, themselves, their animals, whatever they're going to harvest it for. But they don't let the seedling get to be 10 inches tall and then rip it out of the ground because they think, oh, I want to do this now. I'm going to use the corn now. They give it a chance to grow. So be patient with yourself. If a little bit of growth happens, don't think, well, that's it. I wish I could be all the way grown right now in an instant. I didn't make it as far as I wanted to make it. So that's it. I'm going to give up because I'm not worth it and I'm not worthy. Get those ideas right out of your head. Get yourself to a position where you can see your growth, and even when you can't see it, because it's sometimes, quite frankly, you won't be able to see it until you've grown a lot or until you have the time to stop and pause and look back at how far you've come. But that's the really beautiful thing about change and about growth, is if you allow yourself to do it, you can keep growing without plucking yourself out of the soil, so to speak, and without interrupting your growth just to say, hey, I wish I made it right now. The 10-inch high corn seedling isn't any good to anybody except maybe, a rabbit that's going to munch on it for 30 seconds. But it's not big enough to bear fruit. It's not big enough to be all it can be. It's not big enough to be what it needs to be, what it was meant to be, what it's ready to be. And you are that way also. If you are early on in the stages of growing and changing, give yourself some time and give yourself some credit. Don't rush it. Don't rush it. You're going to be okay. It's going to be a great thing when you get to that final stage of growth where you look back and you say, now I'm ready. You say, now I have grown. And the fantastic news about us as people and how we differ from a plant in the garden is that the plant in the garden needs to eventually either be harvested or it will just go by and pass away and wither and wilt. We as people, one of the most beautiful things about us as people is we have the ability to grow continually on and upwards and forwards for years and for decades. I know people who have been growing for literal decades, who now, even in their 70s and 80s, are taking on new careers, learning new skills. Some of them are going back to college. You have such abundant ability and such beautifully deep capacity to learn and better yourself and become a different person. I never want you to rob yourself of that because you think you did not get there fast enough. Speed is not the end game. Speed is not the goal. Growth is the goal. Time is going to pass whether we like it or not. Let's face it. We're going to go to bed tonight and the sun is going to set, and then the sun is going to come up tomorrow morning. No matter what time we get out of bed, no matter what we do with our day, time will keep marching forward, I promise. So take that as a motivation to start right now. I actually posted a video just the other day on social media that said, you will never be this young again. You will never have this exact moment back. And it was about a conversation with my son that I may turn into a podcast episode. We'll see. But it's a really good reminder to just go ahead and start because you're never going to get this time back. Kick it off now and start now and give yourself the chance to grow. And the abundance will come with time. And you don't need to have it all figured out when you start either. Growing plants and growing corn or growing tomatoes, we have it figured out ahead of time. We know what seeds we're going to put in the ground, and that's what's going to happen. But when it comes to yourself growing, you can plant your seeds of growth and figure out which direction you want to go. But as you walk down that path and as you continue along that direction, sometimes the beautiful thing about people is we get to make a right or a left-hand turn. During our growth, we don't have to always grow into exactly what we set out to be. Sometimes we discover along the way that we want to be even more, or we want to be a different version of what we set out to be, and that's perfectly okay. Change is good. Embrace change with open arms. I know sometimes it's so difficult to embrace change because it means things are going to be different, and when we like what's currently going on, we don't want things to be different because we're comfortable and we like our routine and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But the last episode, we talked about how important it is to step outside your comfort zone, and that's how we grow. So let's do that together. We walk outside of our comfort zone, and we find ways we can grow, and we get to this place where we feel really nervous about it, but we say, I think we can do it, I know we can do it, and then you start that, kick off that first step, and once you start down that road of growth, you can keep right on growing. And again, don't rush it. And also, don't think it has to be loud and there has to be some giant fanfare. We are not talking about a pressure cooker meal. We are not talking about overnight success. This is not a microwave, TV dinner that you can zap in the microwave and have it done in a minute and 30 seconds. You are not that. You have such capacity to grow that it's going to take time. That's just the nature of the beast. The ability to grow is something we have just because we're people and we have the ability to learn and adapt and change and make conscious choices and all that kind of stuff. The other thing that we have when it comes to growth, and the beautiful thing about being people, is we have feelings. I know sometimes our feelings get in the way of a lot of things, especially negative emotion, bad feelings, tough feelings, nervousness, anxiety. We feel let down, or we feel like we're not going to be able to get through something or take the next step. And sometimes it's really hard to push back about emotion. But think how beautiful it is that we as people can feel things and feel them so deeply. What a wonderful and amazing ability it is to have something to guide us besides logical and rational written words. Yes, you can read something. Yes, you can listen to a conversation or someone tell you about something or a topic, or someone can introduce you to a new skill. And you might think that sounds interesting, and they might tell you it's interesting. But to go along with those thoughts, to go along with the words they're telling you, to go along with the words you might be reading, you have emotions. We have feelings that will either say, that doesn't seem like it's for us, or that might say, oh my God, that sounds so exciting. Please, let's try it right this minute. And that is so incredible when that happens. When you get to a place where you discover what you love, and then along the lines, if you picture two lines crossing through midair, one's coming down from the top left, one's coming down from the top right. On the left is what you love, on the right is what you are really, really good at and what you find meaningful. Those two things will intersect. And when those two things intersect, where what you love and what you find meaningful, where they cross over each other, beautifully amazing and abundant things will happen. And they can't happen unless you are willing and ready to grow. So we as people, when we look at ourselves, I've said this before also, that we are our own harshest critics. We would never tell a loved one or our best friend or our spouse or significant other to not rest, to not sleep. We would never tell them that we didn't like their clothes. Well, sometimes we might, if we're trying to be helpful. But we would never treat them as unkindly as sometimes we treat ourselves. We are so hard on ourselves sometimes, and I think especially when it comes to growth. I know I'm raising my hand right now. You can raise your hand as long as nobody's going to look at you funny if you're listening right now, or just openly admit it to yourself. Some of us, myself included, we have talked ourselves out of something or some things before we even started. We never even gave it a chance to come to life. We never gave it a chance to actually be a thing we were going to pursue because we talked ourselves out of it before it even started. So lay off yourself when it comes to criticism. Give yourself a break. Calm yourself, cool your jets, don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself the chance to embrace the growth, to look at where you want to go, and to kick it off and start. And don't stop saying to yourself, well, this isn't for me, I'll never be able to do that. Never is a very long time. There are a whole host of people who started things late in life, and they absolutely crushed it. So I don't care how old you are. I don't care what your neighbor thinks of it, what your brother-in-law or your sister-in-law or your best friend thinks of it. If you truly find it meaningful and there is a way in your life that you want to grow and something you want to walk towards, just go ahead and do it. And you and I both know, or you and everyone listening, we all know, that I have talked in the past about having time and energy to do things for yourself. We've talked about burnout and capacity. We've talked about pouring into other people's cups and forgetting to pour into our own. When it comes to growth, remember you need to get yourself the right environment and put yourself in a place where you can grow, and don't just solely focus on helping other people. It's fantastic if you water somebody else's roses, but they're always going to bloom more beautifully and earlier than yours if you neglect yours and never water or take care of yours. The same is true about your life's goals and your aspirations and the things you hope you want to achieve. We, as people, are so much more able and equipped to help others grow when we ourselves are tuned into our own growth and our own self-betterment. Think about that for a second. How much better can you help your friend, your loved one, someone in your life when you know directly how to better yourself? If you are someone who is really in tune with your own needs and your own wants, and you are always living a life that feels happy and full and abundant, you have so much capacity to give to other people. If you are someone who feels starved for sleep and rest and you never get a chance to do things for yourself, chances are when it comes to giving things to other people, the only reason you're doing it is because you are obligated to do it and you are stuck in some kind of commitment or obligation. So pursue your own self-growth. And when you start growing and when you are feeling good and you understand what it means to grow and what it takes for you to feel like you're on the right track and you're improving, then you can go ahead and help others. But don't leave yourself stuck stagnant in the dark corner without water or sunlight. Don't leave yourself back there and say, oh, we're going to move everybody else out into direct sun and make sure they have lots of water so they can do beautiful and abundant things. It is up to you to take care of yourself and to take care of your life. And such beautiful and amazing things can happen when you feel good about the person you are. I've talked before about my journey backwards from burnout. I got to a place where I was so exhausted, and I saw something that said sleep won't help if your soul is tired, and it resonated with me so much because that's one of the things that made me realize, thinking about that idea, made me realize I wasn't just tired. I didn't just need rest. I was burned out. I was empty. I was depleted. I had nothing left to give. I had no capacity for anything else in my life. I've said before that burnout is not about energy. It's about capacity, and I mean that so much. So walking back from that is how I got to a place now where I feel so happy and able to give to other people. That is why I have started helping people with things like coaching, why I started speaking to people about burnout, why I have gone on this journey. It didn't start just because I had experienced it myself. That was a big reason, because I don't want people to feel lost and hopeless like I did and wonder what the heck to do and how to walk backwards from it. I want to help teach people how to get to a better place and how to feel better about their lives. But the other reason I'm able to do that and to help people and speak to people and coach people is because I am now at this place in my life where I am happy and abundant, and I have seen and I have realized my own growth as a person. And a big part of that growth was setting boundaries and walking away from the things that no longer served me and walking away from the things that robbed me of all my energy and gave me nothing in return. So when you get to that place where you feel dynamically equipped, I like that phrase, when you feel dynamically equipped to help other people on lots of different levels, that will come as a natural byproduct of you feeling good about yourself and about your abilities and about your capacity and your capabilities as a person to deal with everything you have going on with your life. Because once you are in that beautiful place, then, and probably only then, you can give the best and truest form of your help and your advice and your tips on growth to other people. Giving someone your lackluster energy just because you signed up for something and you're still hanging on to that commitment even though you're burned out and not feeling like you have any room in your own life for growth or the things that make you happy, giving them that lackluster energy is not serving them in any good way, shape, or form. You're just showing up and checking the box to say, yep, I was here. I made roll call, gotta go, see you next time. So dive right into yourself as a person and your own personal growth. And please remember, it does not need to be big and loud and fast and obnoxiously, fanfare-ish. There doesn't need to be bells and whistles and streamers. This is not a 4th of July parade. It's your growth as a person. And the other thing I want to end on when it comes to growth and fast growth and slow growth is some of the most beautifully grown plants and plants and living things, some of them, their growth is so slow, and that's what makes them so strong. I will use an oak tree as an example. An oak tree gets to be about 10 inches high as a little sapling sticking out of the ground, and when it gets to that point, it spends the next 10 years growing its roots. It does not get any higher. It stays a 10-inch high sapling. It stays susceptible to all kinds of things that might come along and munch the top off of it, all kinds of animals that might eat it or trample it or break it down, people that might step on it. It takes that risk. It takes that chance because it needs to put down roots and needs to grow its stable foundation. And do you know the big, beautiful thing about oak trees? The reason they can get to be so tall and the reason they can get to be so broad and have such huge diameter and such giant limbs is because they have a root system that will support their growth and support the energy they need to keep growing for literally hundreds of years. So if your growth right away doesn't happen on the surface, if people can't see it right away, if you can't notice it right away, do not give up. That just means you are taking the time to put down those roots, to grow what is beneath the soil. And in the case of a person, in the case of you, you were taking the time to grow the things inside you and shape your abilities and shape your views on things and get yourself right inside and put down those really strong roots. And then once you have them down, then you can start the outward growth. And when the outward growth happens, you will notice it. The people around you will notice it. You will become this big, beautiful, abundant source of life that is able to help other people. And the most important thing you will be able to do is you will be able to sustain your own growth and keep on growing. If the oak tree didn't have big, giant roots, if it didn't spend 10 years putting down roots, it would not be able to grow to be 100 feet high because it would tip over. The roots couldn't hold it upright. You as a person are the same. Get your roots and the foundation inside you. Get that right and get that ready to grow and let it start growing. And don't worry if it takes a little time. Your growth can be slow. It will still be beautiful. I appreciate you folks hanging out with me so much. Every single episode we have, every single listen, every single like and follow. I cannot tell you how much it means to me and how much it means to me to have you along with me on this podcast journey. If you have liked what you've heard, please go ahead and subscribe to this podcast, download the episode if you'd like, or share it with a friend who you might think needs to hear what we talked about today. As always, thank you very much. Never hesitate to reach out on social media or via email if you are interested in me speaking at one of your events or in coaching services or anything in between. Even if you just have a general question, I love to talk to people and meet new people. Thank you so much for listening. Be very well and have a fantastic, fantastic rest of your day.
Thanks for tuning in to Todd Talk. If you've liked what you've heard, please go ahead and subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any updates or new episodes. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.